Welcome back to the channel, you Kurd nerds. Today we're going to be dissecting the A36 Apache in WarThunder. And for those of you who don't know, the A36 is an absolute unit when it comes to ground realistic battles. I prefer not to use it for air arcade or even realistic air. I think where it belongs is as an aerial spawn in ground realistic. And we're going to get into that into the video. Now, before we get too far into the video, we of course need to cover some basic stats of the A36. So let's start with realistic. You're going to be looking at a stock maximum speed of 542 kilometers per hour, which can eventually be upgraded to 589 kilometers per hour with a max altitude of 9,000 meters. You're going to be looking at a turn time of 24.2, which can eventually be upgraded to 22.3, and a rate of climb of 9.7, which can eventually get up to 13.1 with a takeoff run of 400 meters. Now, if you're going to be playing arcade, you're going to be looking at a stock speed of 556, upgrading to 625. You're going to have, again, the same max altitude, 9,000 meters, turn time of 23.4 up to 21.3, and a rate of climb of 9.7, upgrading to 17.4. Now, let's get into the video and blow some stuff up. And here we are in the A36 Apache, and this thing is absolutely armed to the teeth when it comes to ground assaults. It comes equipped stock with 6 12.7 millimeter M2 Browning machine guns. 4 of them are mounted on the wings and 2 of them are mounted on the chin, and they are ideal for strafing runs, taking out those ground targets, taking out those howitzers, taking out that anti-air, and even taking out some light tanks. You can use it to take out treads on some other ground targets, so keep it in your arsenal if you're planning on playing some ground realistic. It also is going to be one of the first aircraft that you get, especially a dive bomber, that has air brakes. These air brakes make it an absolute joy to actually point that nose at the ground and not being worried about snapping the flaps off, not being worried about snapping the wings off when you go to pull up, because you're actually controlling the speed of the aircraft. Now, it can be equipped with anywhere from 100 to about 500 pounds of bombs, making it not necessarily a base destroyer. It's going to take you a couple runs if you really want to destroy a base, but it's great for taking out ground targets. And if, again, you are playing ground realistic, it's great for providing some close air support to your other, teammates, to your squad mates, the people who need your help whenever you pull out a bomber or a fighter or some kind of aircraft in ground realistic. So would I say that this thing's awesome for air realistic or even air arcade? No, not really, but it's an absolute unit in some ground realistic. Now, if bombs are not your cup of tea, if you don't really feel like being a dive bomber, the A36 can also be equipped with 2 gun pods, giving you a total of 10 50 caliber machine guns. And this is in a battle rating of 3.0. This thing puts absolute just massive amounts of holes in any kind of aerial targets, but what it's really meant for is those light armored ground targets. So let's see how this does against some anti-air targets on the ground. It's going to do an absolutely amazing strafing run along the road, taking out almost every single one of those ground targets you see ahead of it. Where else are you going to get that level of ground unit decimating power than out of the A36? And it's not just meant for the light armored targets. If you can get low or get behind a heavy armored tank, you are more than capable of taking out their tracks, making them a sitting duck for your other ground realistic teammates. there you have it. The in-depth review of the A36 Apache in WarThunder. And in conclusion, to wrap everything up, the A36 kind of sucks, as you can tell behind me, in Air Arcade and Air Realistic. But it is an absolute powerhouse in the ground realistic battles. It is a versatile attacker, and you can use it for dive bombing against armored targets and fortified positions. Just make sure that if you are going to use the gun pods, figure out your convergence angle on where all of those guns line up. How far do you want to be when all those guns line up, so that you can make sure that all 10 of those 50 cals hit your target when you want them to. So get up close, get personal with softer targets, but just remember that speed and agility are key. Attack swiftly and retreat quickly to reset for another strike. The machine guns, especially with the gun pods, can shred through enemy ground forces, making the A36 an absolutely relentless aggressor. And if you enjoy these in-depth WarThunder reviews of things like the A36, the PBM, the PB4Y, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell icon so you get a notification every time we put out another amazing WarThunder video. And as always, keep it cheesy.